Afternoon. It's time for more Frost Hollow Hall, and we're starting with a dreaming sequence again. Dreaming 2. I'm under the ice in the blink of an eye. A hand touches mine, the fingers so cold I shiver. When I realise it's him, my angel, I light up inside. Only he looks too tense, too pale. I see his mouth is moving, but I can't hear the words. What is it, I ask? What's wrong? Yet the more I talk, the less I hear. I stop. Wait. And it's as if the answer is right inside my own head. I can't rest in peace until the truth is known. What truth, I say, confused. He doesn't answer. It's cold down here, too cold. His hand rests on mine like ice. I'm scared. He senses it almost before I do. I can't bear him to look at me, and I try to turn away. But the lake bed is sticky. It sucks at my boots, grabs at my skirts. I'm held fast. I can't move. The fear turns to panic. Inside my head, I hear his voice again, clear as glass. Now it's your turn to save me, he says. What on earth does he mean? I see my own panic in his face. I almost feel his too fast heartbeat. He moves back and begins to fade. Who are you? I say, because no angel would be this unhappy. I want to go to him, but I'm still held fast. My skirts are tangled in a mass of weeds. The more I tug, the tighter they hold me. The boy stops. He doesn't answer, but he comes back to me and with one deft move frees my skirts. I owe my life to this boy. It's my turn to help him, and I would if only I knew how. Now he tries to tell me something. It's something to do with my frock. I twist this way and that to see what he means, but it stirs up mud and the water turns so cloudy I can hardly make out a thing. Who are you? I say again, but my words are lost in the water. Right, chapter 6. Some sort of truth. The first thing I clapped eyes on was my best Sunday frock, hung like a shadow on the back of the door. Ma had put it there to dry out. Just the sight of it now made me go shaky and shivery like I'd a fever coming on. And that question still echoed around my head. Who was the boy in the lake? A strange notion gripped me that the answer was here, in the room, that it was in fact inside my frock. I was out of bed in a flash. Up close the fabric had that outdoors smell. Quickly I ran my fingers along each sleeve and around the neckline. The cotton was damp and chilled like pastry, and thin in the places where it was almost worn through. More slowly now I traced each pleat, each fold, moving down until I'd reached the hem. Nothing seemed amiss, though I noticed how loud my heartbeat seemed. Perhaps I was poorly still, or maybe this was all part of the dream. Then, at a spot where the hem had come loose, I touched something small and hard. I pinched at it, rolled it in my fingers, feeling its shape through the cloth. What was it? I eased the thing out. It fell cool and heavy into my palm. I closed my fist tight round it, scared I'd drop it, though by now I knew from the feel of it what it was. How the heck had it got into my frock? My head reeled. In my dream, the boy had barely touched me. I'd no memory of him giving me anything. Then I remembered. In freeing my skirts, he'd touched the hem. He'd saved me, and this was my reminder. Now I had to do the same for him. I tiptoed over to the window and lifted the curtain for what little light there was. By now it was just before dawn. The pane was covered with ice. When I breathed on it, the ice melted away, and I saw that it was snowing outside. Ever so slowly I opened my fist. In my hand was a small gold ring. I stared in wonder. Tiny heart-shaped leaves were carved into its surface. It was right lovely, the gold all warm-coloured like honey. So the boy had saved my life and given me a ring. Yet I still didn't know his name. I began to feel uneasy. This ring was clearly worth a bob or two. But poor folk like me didn't have fancy jewellery, not unless we'd nicked it. Everyone knew that. I turned the ring over. Something was written on the inside of it, words almost too small to see. I held it closer to the light. Christopher Edward Barrington. My insides turned cold. It couldn't be. Could it? I pressed my forehead against the window. Any minute now I'd wake up. But the ring felt real in my grasp. In the dream, the boy hadn't answered my question. Now he had. This was the answer, wasn't it? The boy under the ice wasn't an angel. He was Kit Barrington. Only Kit Barrington was dead. My breath seemed trapped in my throat. I must be delirious. It couldn't be real. I even considered waking Eliza up because of a sudden I was fearful. It all felt too much, too strange. I hadn't the wits for this. I didn't ask to be part of some dark business where dead people were haunting my dreams. It was very nearly light now. Behind me the bed springs creaked as Eliza turned over. I realised how chilled I was, how my teeth were chattering and my hands shaking with cold. I crept back into bed, all the time keeping hold of the ring, which seemed to grow warm in my grasp. Sure enough, the fear began to lift. Did it matter if Kit was a ghost? I had no reason to fear him. He saved my life, after all. And he really was the finest looking boy I'd ever seen. What's more, he was counting on me to help him. It felt like an honour, really, it did. My own ma wouldn't trust me to darn a flipping sock. As I lay listening to the hush of falling snow and the church clock as it chimed the hour, I grew calmer. I pushed the ring onto my finger. It slid over my knuckle, cool and tight, as if it had been made for me. When I woke again, it was proper morning. The room was full of cold white light, snow light. Still snowing, said Eliza. Ma's up already, clearing the front path. Don't know why she's bothering. She'd propped herself up on the pillows, and even though I was only half awake, I sensed something was troubling her. Tilly? She sounded serious. It didn't bode well. Can you keep a secret? My heart sank. I was rubbish at keeping secrets, but she'd got my attention, so I pushed my hair out of my eyes and sat up. I must have nodded because she said, good, and started rummaging under the bed. She pulled out a book. Between the pages was what looked like a piece of paper. Now, this is the secret part, what you're not to tell, she said, taking the paper out and smoothing it over her knee. Ma would go hopping mad, and we don't know for certain. I'd not the faintest notion what she was on about. 3 words jumped off the page. White Star Shipping. This didn't make matters much clearer. When Pa went off to the railways, he left his best jacket behind. I found this in the pocket, said Eliza, meaning the sheet of paper. You went through his pockets? She shrugged, unfazed. Someone needs to ask questions. People don't just not come home. I've asked folk in the village too. And no one's seen him, not even at the alehouse. So where do you think he is? She turned her face to me. Her eyes were bright. You know he had those dreams? I did, all too well. One day, Tilly, he'd say, we'll find a house with some land and keep our own pigs for market, and we won't owe nobody nothing. Won't that be grand? Then Ma would tell him not to be daft because she couldn't do it all on thin air, and she'd share looks with Eliza, who'd start yawning. Neither of them had ever listened, not like I did. Looks like this was one of them, she said to me now. And what a dream to have. The piece of paper was a flyer, the sort that people handed out in the street when they wanted to sell you something. I started to feel sick as I focused on the words. Steamship and steerage class. £7 a ticket. Liverpool to New York in under 10 days. He wouldn't, I cried, staring at Eliza in horror. But America! Just imagine it. Well, if he did go, he'd take us with him. Puh, would he? I wasn't sure either. How many hours had I sat at his feet, listening to him paint a merry picture of the life we'd one day have? And now I struggled to even remember what his voice sounded like. I hid my face in my hands and began to cry. Blimey, Tilly, Eliza gasped. Where'd you get that? I parted my fingers to see my sister kneeling over me, her hair tucked behind her ears. Her eyes were nearly popping out of her head. Oh, flip! I was still wearing Kit's ring. I whipped my hand back under the covers. Too late. She grabbed my wrist hard. "Let me see," she hissed. I snatched my arm back. "Keep your beak out of it." "I'll just have to tell Ma then." "Try it," I said, "and I'll be telling your secret too." Chapter 7. Double Dare. Eliza didn't speak to me at breakfast. She left for work without saying goodbye. Quite honestly, I was glad to see the back of her. Now I could hide Kit's ring away without her seeing. I couldn't risk carrying it with me. I might lose it or get done as a thief. In the end, I chose our bed as the hiding place, stuffing the ring in an old stocking and sliding it under my side of our mattress. If Eliza did try to nick it, I'd be sure to wake up like a shot. Then I wound my shawl tight around my head and shoulders and set off to school. It wasn't snowing anymore, but the sky was still grey and heavy, and the air so cold it woke me up and got me thinking. Not miserable thoughts about Pa. These were good ones, all about Kit. For the first time in my life, I felt I'd been trusted with something proper important. I was glad of it and proud, but it weighed on me too, since I'd no idea how to help him. All I knew about Kit came from village gossip, which didn't seem much use when I was trying to seek out a truth. What I needed was to get closer to the real Kit Barrington. That way I'd find out the facts. The big question was, how? Frost Hollow Hall had locked front gates and people patrolling the grounds. Will Potter might know the place, but if my hazy memory of Sunday served me right, it wasn't the most welcoming house in the world. Not that I'd let that put me off. Kit was counting on me now, and it was such a stirring thought my spirits truly began to lift. I marched on, a person with a purpose. Though the snow was only a few inches deep, it made the whole world look different. Like a spell had been cast over Froscombe village, turning the cow byres and cottages into things of magic. Then I saw Will Potter. He was hanging a side of beef outside his pa's shop. Two daft girls stood watching him, simpering and giggling as he played the idiot. When he saw me, he waved and called my name. The girls pulled faces and elbowed each other. I felt my cheeks growing hot. Putting my head down, I kept walking, all the while an idea growing in my head. At school, I couldn't focus on anything much, nor could the pupils. The snow made them restless, which got the class teacher, Miss Fletcher, so rattled she was near to blowing her top. To cap it all, the stove wouldn't stay lit, so by lunchtime it was too cold to even write properly. Poor Miss Fletcher had had enough. The class cheered when she told them they were being sent home. It was my place to stay behind and tidy the slates and put reading books back on the shelves. Though clearly today, I wasn't doing a very good job of it. "Go home, Tilly, your mind's elsewhere too," said Miss Fletcher as she put on her coat. "But I'll expect you bright and early tomorrow." "Yes, miss." I rushed for the door. With 3 good hours of daylight left, I'd no intention of going home. I headed straight for the butcher's shop. Will was there, sweeping the floor. He looked at me coolly, taking in the snow on my skirts and the plaits coming loose at my shoulders. I fixed him with what I hoped was a meaningful stare. "I've been thinking about that dare of yours. You know, the one what wasn't really a dare at all, and I nearly..." He held up his hand. "If you've come to give me another earful, then buzz off. I'm busy." I was taken aback. I'd pictured him still all sorry for himself, dying for a chance to be friends again. It hurt me that he wasn't. "That's not why I'm here," I said, trying to hold my temper. "Oh, well, you're not here to be civil, clearly. You didn't even say hello this morning." It wouldn't do to fly at him now. "I want to go back to Frost Hollow Hall." "You're mad!" Will turned his back and started sweeping again. I stayed put in the doorway. Eventually he seemed to realise I wasn't going away. "So what's it got to do with me?" "You said there were places at the hall even more daring to go than the lake." "So?" My heart beat quick. "Now I've got a dare for you." "Really?" "We have to go to Kit Barrington's grave." He looked horrified. "Well, will you come?" He shook his head. "Not a chance." not? You know why. The Barringtons are important customers. We can't afford to lose them. My pa'd kill me if he knew what we'd been up to. I reckon we got off lightly last time. You call what happened getting off lightly? I didn't mean it like that. Of course, I said, flicking a plait over my shoulder. You might just be scared. No, I'm not. Prove it. Will leaned on his broom and sighed. Kit's grave, Tilly? Really? The way he said it made my heart go even faster. It's even one of them places you was talking about, isn't it? You wouldn't want to get caught there, he said. And do you know how to get to it? I've an idea, yes. So will you show me? He puffed out his cheeks. Heck, you really know how to pick a dare. You started it, remember, I said. Does this mean we're friends then? It didn't sound quite so bad now he'd said it. I nodded. All right. He put down his broom and disappeared off to speak with his pa. He returned with his hat and coat. I told him we was going for a nice cosy stroll, he said, grinning. Is that so? He could think what he liked just so long as he got us to Kit's grave. I've only got an hour, so let's get cracking, Will said. But I still think you're mad. Chapter 8. Flights of Angels. At the gates of Frost Hollow Hall, I took a long breath. Straight there and straight back. Got it? Will turned up the collar of his coat. I could tell he was nervous too, and making a bad job of hiding it. He looked over his shoulder once or twice and then peered through the gates. We're going that way, are we? I nodded at the wide drive leading away from us into a thicket of trees. Yep, we'll need to be quick. What are we waiting for then? We ain't here to admire the view. All right, he tutted and pulled down his cap. The gates were shut. I reckoned I was small enough to squeeze through the bars, but Will had found another badger hole in the hedge, so we clambered through there and went quickly round the first bend of the drive. I was hoping for a view of the house, but all I could see was snow. I kept walking straight ahead. Will yanked me back by my shawl. Not that way. You'll leave footprints. Now stick close, he said crossly. We turned sharp left off the drive and slowed our pace, though my heartbeat seemed to quicken. The way was too narrow to walk side by side, so Will took the lead and I fell in behind. Wild gorse and bracken grew over the path and branches bent low across us. It looked like no one had walked this way in years. The snow was deeper here. It came up to the tops of my boots and soaked my skirts. I hitched them up best I could. Will stopped suddenly. I ploughed right into the back of him. Can you climb that? He pointed to a waist-high stone wall. Of course. He vaulted over it with a quick flick of his heels. I pulled my skirts between my knees and tucked the hem of my waistband at the front. I ignored his offer of a hand and scrambled over. On landing, I looked around me. What I saw made me shudder. We stood in a dismal, dank little graveyard. I didn't fancy going much further in. It struck me just how quiet it was here, the eerie kind where even a breath sounds deafening. Before us, the ground swarmed with little metal headstones, poking up through the snow like teeth. Each one was red with rust, and between them were great tussocks of dead grass. The place looked uncared for, forgotten about. They might have been pets' graves, though I'd not have buried a dog in such a spot if you paid me. What a poxy place. Kit Barrington wasn't buried here. Any fool could see that straight away. We'd come all this way for a big fat nothing. And now my plan looked stupid too. I'd wanted to see Kit's grave to know how his family remembered him. Stupid me for thinking Will might help, and even stupider him for reckoning he knew all the flipping answers. It was about time Will Potter got a piece of my mind. One little grave stood out from the rest. It had been tended, and recently too. The brambles had been cleared, the ice scraped off, and a fresh snowdrop lay beneath the headstone. I crouched down to read the name on it. Ada. Taken too soon. No date, no surname. Just 4 simple words. But it stirred me strangely, my eyes filled with tears. She was dead in the ground, this Ada. Yet someone still cared enough to come out here in the cold and tend her sorry little grave. It seemed so very sad. But then if I was dead, I suppose my pa might do such a thing for me. And the thought made me well up even more. It was colder than ever now, and it had started snowing again. I wiped my face and stood up, looking for a way out of this God-forsaken place. I realised then that I'd lost Will. I called out, "Where are you?" The noise sent rooks bursting from the treetops, their hateful racket setting me right on edge. "Will, where the flip are you?" "Over here, slow coach." He was standing by the far wall. I hurried over to him. "What are we doing here?" I snapped. He rolled his eyes like I was a total lummox. "This is where they bury the servants." "But I want to see Kit Barrington's grave, and you said you knew where it was." "This place is a shortcut, that's all. Not scared, are you?" This was mighty rich coming from him. "Fat chance," I said, "but you better know where we're going, I'm warning you." Will led me through a gap in a holly hedge, and this time onto a clearer path wide enough for us to walk together. A blackbird hopped from bush to bush up ahead, singing sweetly in the chill air. "The hall's half a mile behind us. You won't see it from here," he said as I turned to look. "Come on, we're nearly there." The path curved to the right and into a clearing flanked by yew trees. Leading off from the centre were more little walkways, each one ending with a stone urn or a pillar or marble cross, all covered in snow. People lay buried here too, it seemed, only this place was grand, with its clipped hedges and fancy carvings. The quiet was different too. Not bleak and queer, but painfully sad in a way that made my throat ache. Will nodded up ahead. Here it is. Standing pale against the leaves was a most magnificent sight. An angel stood before us, taller than a man, with wings spread wide and head bowed, clutching flowers to its breast. I stood still, completely overawed. "Go on then, have a look," said Will, nudging me forward. Hardly knowing where to put my feet, I stumbled forward. I reached out to touch the angel's hand. I wondered for a moment if it was real. The stone was smooth and cold against my fingers. Looking down, I saw the name carved into the base at the angel's feet. Christopher Edward Barrington. Fell asleep February the 6th, 1871. Our beloved Kit. Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. Before this moment, I might just have convinced myself that I'd had a fright and imagined everything. The boy under the lake, the dreams, the ring. Not now. Kit was dead. The gravestone made it real. And what a fine grave it was. I knelt down and stared at the stone angel towering above me, tears streaming down my face. Someone had laid a wreath of fresh winter roses at the foot of the statue. Lord and Lady Barrington, most probably. They'd have knelt here too, just as I was doing now. This was Kit's final resting place. Only I knew he wasn't truly at rest. That's it for today. More tomorrow. Bye.